Do I gotta hit it again, or did that go through? I think.
So this going now.
Good, good. Um, Welcome to Quantum Leap, folks, with David and Corey, and we're actually picking up a discussion Corey and I had a few weeks ago on weaknesses in business and how to resolve them. I have a list here of 10 pretty good ones that we see fairly common, and Corey and I are going to get to that. But if you don't mind, Corey, just introducing yourself, and if you have anything new you want to report, feel free.
Yeah, hey, I'm Cory Nutt, and I am a co-owner of Take Wing Coaching, and kind of toying with the idea of how to like really describe what my coaching style is. So, kind of going with collaboration coach right now, but I focus on business partnerships and helping people who are running a business together, but also sometimes just doing joint ventures that has struggled to get off the ground.
Great, and I know we are going to have a presentation from you at some point on the business partnerships, and the one you gave the other day was great, so we'll look forward to that. And my name's David Kirsten. I'm a video producer, and if you're new to the show, we talk about business development issues, and Corey is really an expert in the business development field, and I help kind of curate a lot of his ideas and give my own 2 cents as I learn more and more. And this is kind of right in our wheelhouse for this show. Normally talk we talk a lot about business strengths as well and how to get those strengths stronger. But today we're going to revisit this topic that we talked about on the January 21st. So if you want to see the first half of this show, check that out. And it's on business weaknesses. Just to recap, because I think they all go together here. And I know we see these every week in our networking groups at times, and we have them in our own business too. And I think a lot of times we like to ignore things comfortably, but if you ignore too many of these, they can lead to your business really, going down the tube, so to speak. So, um, just a brief recap: not enough enthusiasm in business, kind of a lack of motivation. We all have this at times. And again, we're not going to recap all the solutions here, the first five. We're going to go on the second five and talk about those and talk about solutions too. That's the main focus. So, don't have a system to capture or check in with potential with leads or client leads to keep these people in your network, and that goes with a successful CRM, customer retention management system. Number three, sufficient marketing funnel. So, this is a little bit from the online world here, but I feel like we need a marketing funnel that succeeds both in person and, online, so to speak. How do you move clients through your sales process and uh, close the close the deal, so to speak? I just got a reset message here. Let me just make sure this is. Um, yep, we're still good. Number four, capacity to turn around projects in a timely manner. That brings up systems. The E Myth book comes to mind there about how to create successful systems for our business. And number five, outdated or ill-defined product or service list. You know, Big thing I like to do probably every quarter, I try to do it, is just really take a look at that offering list and try to freshen that up. I think sometimes you got to freshen it up with the times too. There's buzzwords out there that if you can incorporate those, people look at that as more relevant. If you're still using language from the 90s or, you know, uh, that can show. So if you have any thoughts on those first five, Corey, feel free to jump in. Um, but we are going to get to number six today.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just lay them out here, and then we'll get to them one to one. Lack of an engaging story or elevator pitch, and I say greater purpose for the business. So if this is missing, it usually means a lot of other things are kind of not quite going as well, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, how to really get a greater purpose for your business, and this is one of Corey's strong suits. So um, we talk about this on the show um, as well. Number seven, stagnating business growth. So I don't know if you've commonly heard that expression from Bob Proctor, that we're either growing or declining as a business. And I think a lot of small businesses are just in a steady state of slow decline. So eventually, that's not sustainable. That if you're not growing over time, you're really declining, and that's a problem. Number eight, no sufficient method to capture higher tier clients. So I think this is something we can both get excited about, Corey. I know we're always really, the networking up and going after those clients that really encourage us to grow, or who are better than us. And I say better in that there's no other way to put it than maybe existing or past clients, because they ask more, but there's a greater reward. So how to get to those higher tier clients, and ideally you want to kind of keep climbing that ladder. Number nine, lack of sufficient business capital. So, you know, what I was getting at here is that if there's things that could be done to really accelerate the business growth, but you don't have the ability to maybe invest in a new website, even though you don't have one, or it's maybe you need some new branding. You've never done branding for 5 years, but you need maybe a logo, some new business cards. That's about having extra capital around for the business, and um, that. So we're going to talk about that. And I have number 10 here is a big one that my business is really geared towards, is little or no social media presence. And we actually have a great guest at the 11 a.m. hour that we're going to talk a little bit about what we're doing for him. But I think this is something you can really turn around pretty quick if you put the right things in place, and it can make a big difference in your revenues. And I'd say, on the order of 20 to 30% or more. So with that, let's talk about this number six, Corey, first, because I feel like this is, as we go in our networking circles, or maybe you go to a networking event, we're exposed to this all the time, where people are talking about their business, but maybe they just, a lot of times people say, "Oh, I do this, so just get in touch with me." But you
Right.
want to have really a story that draws people in. And you see people who do this well, but what would you say? How do you go about fixing this issue?
Yeah, I think the challenge, and we've been doing this for 20 years. It is nothing new. Um, a lot of people think that, if I just say what I do, then people know what that means. And it there's a lot that you have to pack into a very short amount of space. And I think Michael McDonagh has a really good thing. He's called it the log lines, which is sort of the pitch that you give in Hollywood to pitch a script. And you basically get 15 seconds, to win over to say, okay, we want to hear more. And so if you can't get that, we want to hear more in the first 15 seconds, then it's not landing. Um, and then on the other side, when I was first starting to really talk about the partnership coaching, I was going to some other coaches who have been successful, and I know we could be good referral partners. And what I get back is, I don't understand your value proposition, right? What is, why do they need what you do, versus, the other kinds of coaching and other things out there. So I think it's really good to think about what goes into the first 15 seconds of what you say. As you said, defining your purpose. Instead of I sell insurance for home, auto, and residential, it can be, something a little more about who it is that you're helping, right? It's like, I'm helping people find insurance for homes they can't insure. I don't know. But whatever it is you're passionate about, put it into that first 15 seconds. Stories are good, especially when you're kind of repeating these things, but in a networking environment, or even just on your web page, right? The web page is the same thing. It's now you have about, 3 to 10 seconds to capture somebody who lands there. And so the first 3 or 4 words are more critical than anything else. So that's the challenge, is people have short attention spans and they've heard it all before. So unless you have something that's unique about you, you're just another, voice in the or, if you're doing something really unusual, but even then that could be tough because people don't, if they haven't heard it before, then they don't understand the value proposition, right? I understand the value of insurance, I understand the value of financial planning, why you, but sometimes people come at you with something that's new or different, and it's hard to understand exactly what that is. So, yeah, no, not having that is a really big deal, and refining it constantly is very important. AI helps a lot with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I notice you often will refresh this and kind of deconstruct it, build it back up, and I like that approach. You always kind of keep us on our toes, and B and I with doing that. I'd say a couple things that are really help me keep this concept fresh in my mind. One of them was that life changing room full of referrals seminar that you gave at one point. That's through Ascentive, because that gives the frame of when you're talking to a certain, like a go-getter out there. Here's the window, like you said, 15-20 second window. If you don't communicate in that, those people are gone, or but if you have the examiner types, so it's how you talk to different people. So I do think it's there, you can have a different message for different people based on their who they are, their personality, and that's a great seminar that you give. And I think Ivan was actually given that to BNI folks, because I know it's harder to find these days.
Yeah, Incentive no longer is around. Don teaches it occasionally in the Bay Area, and I'm working on possibly putting together a version more for collaboration. So I'll change the languaging, not so much the networking, but how do I work with people in collaboration using this. So same kind of rules, but yeah, the deeper dive.
Yeah, and I actually go over this really as a key thing for my video clients too, how to put a script together of like 30 to 60 seconds. And, the first 4 seconds are critical for video. And that's not even words. That can just be like an energy or a vibe in the first 4 seconds that you want to grab somebody. That's why I think it's great to have some logo art, or, something that is interesting that you can use at the beginning.
Right.
But then I base it a lot on that story brand, which we've talked about on here, about how to draw people into a bigger storyline. So it's not like, yeah, I just sell insurance. It's like, I can, I mean, this is something our insurance agent does really good, that, he's kind of like position himself as really a industry leader in that field. So if you need insurance, I'm the person to come to, kind of thing. It's a totally different. So we'll leave that there for today. Thanks for the thoughts on that. But Cory and I are both happy to talk more about that too, because I think as you go to these networking events, it's so important to have just an interesting pitch about what you do. If you're kind of drab about your business, why should that other person be excited about it?
Right.
Number seven, stagnating business growth. So you are either growing or declining. I know you're a numbers guy, and we want to kind of look at where our numbers are, look at where they're going, and always have goals set for growth. But what would you say about what people should be tracking in terms of their business revenues, and how to how to attack this problem of stagnating business growth?
Yeah. Well, I saw something that was really good, is in terms of, if you're getting growth, don't stop doing what you're doing, right? Because those of us who like to do new things, it's like when something's working, it doesn't, it's not a good time to stop. It doesn't mean that you can't, as you say, kind of refine your message and do other things, but there's sort of this thought that if okay, that's all working now, let's try something else because we want to grow. But really, scaling comes from doing the same thing over and over, being that consistent process over and over, without, shifting away entirely from it. So if things are shrinking, that might be one of the first problems is, are we trying to change things up? Um, and it's also important to know your industry and what are the trends, right? What is changing, because if things are shrinking, then something else is going on, right? The market, in my world, market declines that can affect coaching, right? People don't want to spend the money on that. Um, or so you have to, find that niche that, needs it. Um, or change things up a little bit there too. Find a job, do something to to fill in, right? We can do collaborations. But on the number side, yeah, tracking the sales is important. Tracking every prospect from from the first touch, right? Even the cold referral or the lead to the very end, to the the close or the gone, because having those numbers means that you can then determine what's not working, right? If you know your close ratio, then you always know um, how many you need to have in the pipeline. Kind of going back to Michael O'Donoghue, he had a great story about that. Starting out as a financial advisor, he'd have to make 300 calls a day. And he knew that he'd have to make 300 calls a day to get a certain number of appointments to get a certain number of sales. And it's like, if you don't do the calls and you don't get the appointments, you don't get the sales. So it is a numbers game. And then you can start saying, okay, well, if my closing ratio is low, what can I do to increase that? Get better at sales. Um, Something I've had to do quite a lot of, or follow up. Follow up is one of the things that kills a lot of us who don't like, cold calling and sales. It seems to happen a lot where, you get these referrals that kind of sit and, oh, well, they'll get back to you, they'll get back to you. And then I'm not doing the follow up. So that's on me. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, I hear you. Well, good. We'll just a time check here. We got about 9 minutes till our 11 a.m. guest, so we'll keep moving through these. Um, Now, I know we're going to do an episode on this at some point again because, Mike Macedonio and Ivan actually just gave a segment on this networking up, but I'm calling this issue no sufficient method to capture higher tier clients. I really think the best way to almost turn around your revenues and even, solve a lot of the other problems is one new top tier client can make a huge difference in
Mhm.
your business, especially as a solopreneur. Um, so I don't know if you have any initial thoughts on this, on how do you attract these people who you want, but you maybe haven't had an easy time or, um, you know, basically
Yeah.
new people. Yeah.
Well, two things. One, you alluded to the networking up, which I think is hugely valuable, and just in terms of getting to the kinds of people that you want to get to. But that takes time, and you really have to practice more of a giving philosophy to really make that work. And it takes effort. There are good organizations now, though. I mean, I love BNI, and you can do some networking up in there, but you can also do that through like Rotary. You can do it through Provisors, which it just has a more of an experienced set of professionals who typically work with higher dollar clients. Um, but the work is much harder because those are not referral organization. Well, Provisors is, but it doesn't have the accountability factors built in, and the frequent connection. So if you don't show up, you don't get anything, right? You've got to show up, you've got to give, you've got to be, the kind of person that people want to refer to and trust. And it takes a long time to build that trust, especially the higher value clients, because for me to give you my high value clients means, I am risking a relationship. And so I have to be absolutely certain that, that I won't lose that relationship if you screw it up. Um, and that's true of any referral, but especially the high value ones. On the other side of it, I was actually talking to another guy who kind of goes beyond the story brand. And he's targeting people are usually kind of at the height of their career, and they're finding they're not getting those high tier clients that they want. They're like, why is these other people getting them and I'm not getting them? And I like what he says, and that kind of goes back to what we talked about with the elevator pitch, is really understand your purpose and make sure that people understand that as your message. Because if if you don't explain your purpose, then you just sort of, again, are just a generic person. You don't necessarily have the reputation, and you don't have the immediate catch. So he talks a lot about, finding that deeper purpose, what it is you really do. Like he had an attorney who, it's just, she's kind of a bulldog, right, with her clients, and really fights for them. And so that's great. But if it's not clear on the website, just from an immediate point, like, wow, this is a power attorney, I want to hire her. And not everybody fits that mold, right? So sometimes we try to cast a wide net, but we leave out the people who are going to be immediately interested in what you have to offer. So,
Yeah, no, just in breaking down what you just said, just to recap, I think we you talked about that long game that
yeah,
Ivan really plays. That some of those, to really search out some people, you have to give and tighten
yeah,
up your own purpose. Maybe revamp your own purpose and do that internal work. And over time, you will meet with those people. The kind of quicker fixes would be maybe join a new group like Provisors, or maybe you start marketing to a different area. For example, like do more in San Francisco when you're focused on the East Bay, or Al Walnut Creek, or maybe join a Chamber of Commerce over there, some other major group, somewhere else. So
yeah. I would say widening your network usually isn't a great tool. It's fun to do, and some of us use it as sort of creating our support and information network. I just realize now that I'm actually spending too much time going to these places. Um, what I think, the best words that you can say, especially in an environment where somebody has what you want, has those connections that you want, and it's going to take time to build that trust. So just ask them, how can you help, right? What can I help you with? And a lot of these people, if they're successful, this again goes to the networking up, they have things going on. Is there somewhere you can volunteer or help out with, or give some advice, through proxy, right? So, hey, I mean, I get this all the time now. It's like, hey, I've got these people who are, doing this partnership. What would you advise them? And it's like, I'd love to have the referral, but I'm happy to give the information because I know, they're building trust with me. Like, does he actually know what he's talking about? And can I be sure that if I send these people to him, he's going to treat them the way I want them to? Yeah.
great. Yeah, I kind of threw that in there. I know we've talked about that before, and well put. Number nine here, lack of sufficient business capital. We all get those calls. Is this Mr. Kirsten? Well, we have 200,000 in business capital waiting for you, at a 40% interest rate or whatever it is. But this goes with that growing or declining, that I think we always have to be reinvesting in the business and plan for kind of to make things better. Otherwise, they never get better.
Yeah.
But what would you say? How can small business owners step up their business capital, or is this a saving thing? I mean, I think it's almost everything. It's more revenues. It's more bigger clients. You know,
Well, yeah. I guess the question is, does it take money to earn money, right? And the answer is no. So it really comes down to, does it take? So what do you need with that money? You need a source for earning money. Um, right? I mean, I can coach all day, but I've got to go out and find the people to do it. And my expenses are fairly low, but it's a lot more marketing time, me time. Some people have, upfront costs. They need to. There was the plumber in our chapter is just talking about getting a camera to, put down into these sewer lines because there's business there, right? There's good business there, and so that does require some capital. And if you don't have it, I think that what you've got to do is, one, make sure you pay yourself first, right? We can't shoestring along our own lives too much. And that's where a lot of people miss out. Make sure you're charging what your competitors charge. And that'll help ensure the capital, because you can undercut yourself into bankruptcy pretty easily. Um, or it makes it difficult when you do start getting that growth, when you are getting that sales and you're bringing in those customers. If you need to find a salesperson, you've got to pay them. And we've run into that where clients, we've told them, I mean, for a good salesperson is going to charge you 20 to 30% on commissions. And like, I can't afford that. Well, that means that you're underselling, you're undercharging your clients, and your business is, you're basically just got a job. That's what you've got. You've got a job, and you're probably not paying yourself for as well as you'd pay a salesperson. So these are things to think about in terms of that. You know, we deal mostly with micro businesses. Um, Sufficient capital comes in more importantly when you have employees, and you've got to have something that's, you know, you've got to have that line of credit that's available in case you can't make payroll, because nothing worse than doing that. But also have a plan for how you're going to use anything that you borrow, because if you don't, you just wind up in debt.
Yeah, and one quick fix comes to mind is, Dale Marie, for example. If you get a good small business banker, if you really do need some lower cost capital, you can get it if that makes sense. So
Yeah, I mean, but it's just, you've got to have a plan to pay it back, right? I mean, it's now it's a liability on your books, um, and I've seen that where, people borrow the money and then they don't have any, they're not getting the business to bring it back. Either they didn't have a good plan, or they started with the money rather than going at it. Now Dale has a good plan too, where it's more of a line of credit. So again, if you need to make payroll and then you can pay it back the next week, you have a minimal expense, but it does protect you from significant other problems that can arise. Yeah,
great.
which
We're
could put you
going
out
to
of
get
business.
to our guest here, but we have one
Sorry.
thing here, and that's little or no ongoing social media presence. And
It's more
we
you.
may talk about this a little bit more next hour. I guess we can save this for a future session because it's a pretty big topic. But I'll just say, if you do good video, you don't really need anything else in marketing. You do have to put that out, but the quickest way to turn this around is do a video package and start moving that out. And that's something we're going to do with our next guest. And we can talk a little bit about
Something I
that.
need too. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think now
Say
I'm
that
ready.
again.
I said it's something I need too, and I'm ready to go.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll revisit this as an option. And thanks for listening, folks. We're going to get to our 11 a.m. guest. We'll look back to, or we'll see you back in a couple minutes.